Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Joining me is Judge
Hello.
and Ducky,
Yo!
both very experienced people in the esports industry. Boys, how are we doing?
Okay.
That's the first time I've ever been called experienced.
Okay, well, I take it back.
Wow.
How are we doing?
How are you,
Not too
Ducky?
bad. I'm pretty good. Finished work, ready to talk about my favorite thing in the world with a couple of my favorite blokes. So let's get to it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oof, Chris.
Judge, how you doing?
I'm feeling good. I've had my confidence elixir ready for tonight's broadcast. Nerve-wracking stuff. But I think with two accomplished gentlemen by my sides,
Where are they?
I'm ready to go.
Where are they?
Oh, sorry.
Where are
Swifty's
they?
not here. My
This
bad.
one?
Sweet, where's
Yes. Conky in the back. Yeah.
Funky in the back. Yeah. Cool.
Conky, if you could speak louder, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I don't think my mic's picking him up.
That's all right. We'll get to Conky later. Nico, how are you, though? No one ever asked the host how they are. How are you?
No one ever asked how I'm doing. I'm doing fine though. I've been isolated. I've been stuck here for like 3 days. No, longer than that. 7 days. I've been stuck in this room for 7 days.
There's a significant difference between 3 and 7, Nico. You okay?
I've lost count. Who knows? 3, 7, all numbers and letters are all forming into one. But I managed to get the call out. I managed to get like a siren off, and I wanted to get some help, and I got some help. And this is the help what we got. We got the snowball show. Look at this. Look at these graphics.
I'm so
They're
impressed.
so clean.
Can we
gotta
get a
thank
shout
Swifty
out
for those.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Swifty, for making these lovely graphics. I feel at home in this box.
Yeah.
You're so pretty.
Who, the graphics or me?
Yes.
I think it's the graphics. Anyway,
it's the moustache.
what
do you got for us tonight, Nico?
Look, we can talk about me for this entire hour. I would love that. Don't know about anyone else, but I would like to get stuck into some heated stuff, right?
Sure.
Here at Snowball, we're not. We like tackling the tough issues. Some of the things that have been going on in the Rocket League world at the moment, specifically here, I think you boys have it down more than I do. Would you like to take it away, Judge? What's
I'm going to defer to my esports expert friend Ducky, or Ducky, I should say. There he is.
I wasn't sure you going expert as in in quote marks there.
I thought about it, but I'm not being that mean yet. This is only the pilot, so I'll be friendly for now. But I'll defer to you, my friend. I've been following it as much as my Twitter will let me, but you are the man with the details. Why don't you run through our wonderful viewers what's gone on this week in Oceanic Rocket League?
Yeah, well, if you have been on esports Twitter, you have probably seen this, especially if you're in Oceanic Rocket League. So this weekend was the wrap-up of the Rocket League Oceanic Championship league play. And in there was a match between Team Esper and Fury to round out the season's games, which had massive implications for playoffs. Team Esper took a 2-0 lead in the series. Fury fought back 2 games, which then knocked Esper out of contention for playoffs, but kept Fury in the race if they won the final game. And so then there was allegations of match fixing in the game 5, which saw Esper concede a few goals in relatively mysterious circumstances. Those were leveled against the team as a whole and the organization. Since then, there's been a few tidbits out in the Rocket League community. They were called out by many of the European pros, many of the North American pros. They called out Psyonix, LPL, Team Esper, and the players about this match fixing. There's been calls for them to all be permanently suspended. It was just so happened that it was compounded by the fact that Team Esper released all their contracts on the same day straight after the games, which had nothing to do with the games. I have spoken to Team Esper's owner, Focus. And I've contacted a few parties around. LPL has said they are investigating the situation with Psyonix. The Rocket League team has since been stepped down, and Steve, one of the players on the Team Esper lineup, has distanced himself from Delusion and Frenzy, saying that he's no longer going to be playing with that core. And there's been a lot of actually support coming out for Steve recently on Twitter as well. A lot of players getting behind him and saying he wasn't actually part of it, which has been relatively interesting. But there was one major benefactor from that, and that was Team Fury. They managed to get the final spot over the Renegades, who were knocked out after this game. Obviously, nothing has been confirmed about whether the game was fixed yet or not. That's also all no investigation. I had a chat to Venom, who is the owner of Team Fury. Tried to get in contact with some of the players as well. And basically, he just said that the team is disappointed that they qualified in this way. Like, they wanted the games to be fair and legitimate, and they feel like, regardless of how Team Esper played in Game 5, like, that's out the window. They wish they probably won cleaner in the first couple of games. And, even the casters were calling out Team Esper on cast. So, the jury's basically out on, was this game fixed? Was their malicious intent behind it. There's been a lot thrown around the community, basically what has been happening in this, and the jury's still out.
I think that it's also a large batch of unfortunate circumstances. You've pointed out that Team Esper's contracts had run out. It wasn't that they've dropped the team and they've distanced themselves and get out of here, we don't want to associate with you. That was something ongoing beforehand. Steve separating himself, we don't know if that was something beforehand. Plenty of teams, when they're leaving an organization across my time in Rocket League, have left an organization and then the team split as they go to pursue other opportunities. They don't get to go to an organization elsewhere together. So it's not completely indicative. It is coincidental, but it's not a good look. It's poor timing. So I don't know. I watched the games. I watched the clips of Game 5. From my limited Rocket League experience as a player, I would never have approached a kickoff that way. But from my experience as a former shoutcaster in the game, I certainly would have had the same questions that the casters of LPL had on what was going on in that match as to competitive integrity. But we don't have all the information. There's a lot going on. And like you said, Ducky, we're waiting for responses from people. The players from Team Esper haven't come back. Only person that said anything since yesterday really is Steve, unless someone tweeted something in the last hour or so. So, and Steve, that was Steve's announcement saying, I'm moving away. And Steve and I go a little bit back. I've had good times with S Steve, Sexy Steve, as he used to go by. So like, I don't know. I my jury as the judge is still certainly deliberating, but it's not a good look all around.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway from this is is this like the first major kind of allegation that's been leveled against these players? I'm pretty sure, I haven't heard of anything in the Rocket League scene. I'm not going to say that I'm the most knowledgeable about the Rocket League scene. That's most definitely not my background, but these are some pretty serious allegations that have been thrown around, and it's not just players or other players in the competition. It's players from all around the world. It's spectators. And it's I kind of feel bad that there is still a lot of deliberation going on behind the scenes between Psyonix and LPL. They've said that they're thoroughly going to investigate it. One of the esports leads for Psyonix went on to Reddit today and said that they're really going to be trying to stamp down on this, and that this is no way they want to maintain the highest level of competitive integrity, especially when a tournament like this means so much.
And I think that's why... Sorry, Ducky. I think that's why we've seen such a massive response for it as well. We're seeing, like you said, global Rocket League personalities weighing in on what has happened here. And it's because it is important. We're talking about competitive integrity. In esports, there are very little barriers to entry compared to traditional sports. No physical attributes other than fast twitch muscle fibers and your reaction times. But we're not talking about being 7 foot tall to have a better chance at basketball drafting. The main thing we really rely on is competitive integrity because we work in a digital environment. It is far easier to get away with a lot online, hypothetically, than it is to be juicing to beat the Olympic world record in shot put. So when it comes down to that, that's why I feel we see the global personalities in this space really coming down hard. And it's also, got to be careful of witch hunts as well without full information.
Yeah. And it's actually quite indicative of how the esports landscape has changed. It draws a lot of parallels to the very early days of a lot of sports leagues, is these kinds of allegations, once rules were starting to iron out, you hear about in baseball, you hear about in footy and all those kinds of things. There were these calls of match fixing from way back when, and it's not new to esports. It's probably not new to Rocket League. I can't say that for a fact, but it's definitely not new to esports that match fixing and, fudging games has been a thing for as long as people have been playing competitive games against each other online. It's not a new concept, and it's certainly not a new thing. Yep, you go.
I was going to say, is there something that they can start? What could you do to change this into in the future? We're going forward. This has happened. What could players or owners or orgs do to prevent this from happening in the future? Do we have any ideas on that, or is it?
It's hard because it ultimately comes down to an education thing, and we can't 100% control the actions of a player in the game. They get no different to you can't stop a footy player getting on the field and slugging someone and the damage that'll do to your club, the damage that does for your prospects. Maybe they're a great forward pocket. We can't stop that. What we can do is educate on why we can't do that. For the players personally, that needs to be a club thing as well. It's obviously no esports club, or we certainly hope no esports club endorses this sort of behavior, but they need to make sure that that's bred through the club. Team managers are very forward with that and breed an attitude of integrity. I think that's very important. And ultimately, players need to know what they're up against here if they're doing these sorts of things. We saw, going back a little while now, the match-fixing allegations that came across in domestic CSGO and the implications they had with actual investigations from police, because that's a thing with fraud crime. And a lot of people, and especially young kids, don't quite understand that. We're talking about Rocket League, a scene where most of these players, I think, are under 18, especially in this very specific case. They're not aware of these worldly repercussions. They don't think that, oh, well, if I throw a Rocket League game, it's just Rocket League. They wouldn't be thinking I can be done for fraud. Or if I've bet on these games, I can really be done for fraud. So education, making sure that we're discussing these things and being more involved. It's hard. A lot of esports orgs are bootstrapped, doing what they can and flat out to get by, especially in our region, which is still smaller, but that's my take on it. Ducky, yours?
Yeah, and the point that you bring up about ages is super important. Like, no one on this team is older than 18. I think it's two 18-year-olds and one 17-year-old is on this team. And it's like, esports is a young industry. It's not just young in age, as in esports hasn't been around for like years and years. A lot of the players involved in esports are aged somewhere between 14 and 25. And that stems from not just players, but organizations. That stands for management, tournament organizers, admins, you name it. A lot of esports is young, and so they might not grasp the concept of how massive of an issue fixing one game is, and how massive of an issue that competitive integrity means a lot. Like, it's not just like your ranked game where you can leave or you can do whatever. Yeah, you might lose your license, but from the publisher to actually play the game, there's always a chance to get a new account. This has long-standing damage towards not only your reputation, the reputation of the game's esports scene as a whole, the reputation of the organization that you represented of the players you played alongside, their reputation. It's a whole knockdown effect. And it's the stuff that kills careers. Happened in CSGO, by Power, bam, instantly, 7 players lost their careers. Swag has managed to escape CSGO prison after 5 years and gone off to Valorant. But, players in a game like Rocket League where there's no real direct competitor, they don't have that. And even then, if there was, what team would want to take them up if they've got this on their record? So I think it's just education, making sure that the players are aware of this, and that's onus on the players. It's onus on organizations as well, and it's onus on the tournament organizers. Like, tournament organizers really need to make rules clear about you cannot do this under any circumstances, or you won't have any association to do with this game whatsoever.
That's right. I think. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's
basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is I think a lot of the orgs and a lot of the players have a lot of reflecting to do. They have to realize that when things pierce the bubble of the oceanic esports scene, it does, more stones come flying back in. Sorry to cut you guys off, but we're going to go into our next segment, which is...
If we can get one in, just so we can introduce
our
chat.
I'm
sorry, Nick, I'm sorry! No, I just wanted to... Tibor has put in some good points here as well, and wanted to shout out Twitch chat as well. We are reading you. We are aware that you're talking with us. So please,
my eyes are down here
chime
on
in.
Twitch chat.
Yeah, and it's not just to look at Ducky down there. Nico's actually looking at Twitch chat. No, Tibor's put some good points here. It feels like these are points that he's certainly heard me say before. Absolutely. It's something I've harped on about for 3 years, but esports is a developing industry, and it's going to continue to be something that I harp on about as long as it's a problem. But like Tibor said, this is different to throwing for cash, though. This is throwing for competitive integrity, because the ultimate goal here and the flow-on effect is that Renegades as a top team were not able to secure the spot in the qualifier because this game was thrown. So it raises questions of integrity as to, well, if the teams are playing at their best and really put forward, are we actually getting an Oceanic representative moving forward into that spot that represents our region competitively? So A lot of questions, Nico, but yes, please keep getting them in Twitch
Yeah,
chat. We
sorry,
watch
I
it.
gotta push the show along. I got producers on the phone.
Do
just
it.
going, bring, bring. But first, before we go to our next segment, I need to take a quote from Twitch chat. I am Cyberway said, "Ducky is cute." I just wanted to throw that out there. That's some niceness in this.
Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate
uncertain
it.
times.
I've got my super fans everywhere. What can I say?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's my K-pop posse. They're gonna start taking videos of me at events, and I'm gonna get stan accounts.
Exactly. You'll
They're
be
gonna be
stuck in
following me around.
lines. You'll be stuck in
Yeah.
lines taking photos with people all the time. Anyway,
It's esports stream, bro.
and speaking of esports, right now esports is in sort of what I've called a renaissance period. We've sort of
Okay.
started blossoming a bit due to the devastating events that are happening in the globe right now. Traditional sports have had to take a back seat due to that. But from what we've seen is esports have sort of taken, let's just say they've hopped in the driver's seat a bit. You got F1 drivers moving over to F1, bold stated.
NASCAR.
You got NASCAR, they're doing their own scene. You got, I've seen NRL players started doing streams on Facebook and YouTube. You've got NBA players doing NBA 2K live streams through the NBA YouTube and Twitch channels and all their socials. So we're really starting to see esports starting to be like, oh, hang on, hello, open the door, look who it is, it's traditional sports. And they're like, you got something? And then esports is like, hey, buddy, come on in. So it's been a real
We've got
acceptance.
everything.
Yeah, we've got everything. So what do you guys think of this? What is your take on this? Do you think like this is, it's about time, or is it like we started with Ducky last time. Judge, I'll hand it over to you. Pass the pig skin over.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
I know sports.
Mate, I'm down to receive it.
Yeah.
Look, another topic we've talked about a lot previously all across esports is traditional sports getting involved, the ways they do that, the way they make that monetizable for their already existing audiences, the way they connect with audiences that the AFL, the NRL miss out on. People, again, that age bracket Ducky spoke about, looking at, 15 to 25, when no one really cares about having a footy club membership and would rather spend that money out in the town. So this is a prime opportunity for it because, as you said, those things have now shut down. There's nothing else to turn to. So we might as well turn in the snap judgment and head towards esports. It's something that's happened for a while, though. We've seen plenty of footy players get amongst it already. Mitch Robinson, a great example.
trendsetter. Absolute trendsetter, that
Absolute trendsetter. I got to give my boy Anthony Drimmick from the NBL a big shout out here because the man's been when he was in NCAA college ball, he was competing in World of Warcraft Arena 3v3s. So the man's an OG. But people in traditional sports are also gamers. We're looking at young men who are competing, and it flows on that they would be competing in another environment like gaming. So this is the perfect time for it, just like Ducky, because he's a massive athlete.
Astonishing athlete.
Huge.
Yeah, the fact that we got him on this podcast in the middle of his athletic career is amazing.
Oh,
sorry, Ducky.
I'm like that person on Twitter. I'm not. Account name is like professors about his high school, college, bloody football titles.
Oh my god, I was the captain of my B cluster in AFL. I do not hold that today.
But for me, esports, I came to esports traditional sports, and so I was originally doing cycling journalism, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I came into esports. But before that, I played hockey, I played cricket, I played footy.
Hang on, Ducky, what position in hockey, mate?
I was an inner, bro. Left.
Okay, I got respect.
Yeah, cool. Lots of running.
Right. I was an inner or goalkeeper for most of my time, so you're worth my time.
Yeah, one or the other. Lots of running, no running.
You guys talking about soccer?
Sorry, Nico. We'll catch you up later.
Sports ball. But I think it's awesome seeing the crossover in traditional sport. You're seeing guys like Lando Norris, F1, making a huge name for himself on Twitch. You're seeing virtual Grand Prix happening for F1 in replacement of the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park. In cycling, which is a field I hold very dear to my heart, we just held a virtual Tour of Flanders, Run for Flandern, which is one of the massive spring classics of the year. You got all these guys on Zwift on their bikes, on trainers, just virtually racing, and it's so cool just to see how this is being uptaken by everyone across the scene. Having that crossover between esports and traditional sports, and it's not even just these traditional sports players are now playing their games just on esports versions of them. Their basketball's playing NBA 2K. It's not that. It's you got Luka Doncic, one of the biggest basketball players in America right now, talking about Overwatch on his Twitter, just like that. He's talking about streaming Overwatch. He's talking about why he hates like Overwatch queue times are so long. Like it's kind of like, for someone in the esports scene, it really brings it all down together and goes like, and it also happens in traditional sports. It's like, these people are so similar to us, like we all have our interests. Like, we're not just all esports heads, we all have our enjoyments outside of esports. These traditional sporting stars, maybe they do like hopping on and playing a game of Overwatch at the end of a training night. That's what they do.
It's relatable. Like, that is the ultimate thing. When you want to get young people involved with and influence a sports star, you want to get them on side and develop that sports star's branding. You make them relatable so that, or you go the opposite end and they're so much of an overachiever, you can't ever hope to reach that. That's why they're inspiring. And this is a perfect time for relatability. It's a time now where a lot of sports like AFL, which is hectic, like the NRL schedule, which is hectic, and the NBA schedule, these players who do not have time to be publicly constantly posting about the fact that they absolutely hate Tom Nook and want to be playing more Animal Crossing, they have that time now to express themselves. And they can do so freely without worrying about sponsorship obligations and endorsements throughout the season that might be taking up their time. And that's the key factor for me. We have the time, use it. And we're seeing a lot of these top players doing it in traditional sports. I'm all for it. Bring them in.
Yeah,
the more the merrier.
I agree.
Doors open, come on in.
Yeah, so I'm just reading Twitch chat right now, and Tibber of Time in Twitch chat said, hot take. Careful. Hot take. If esports can't take off now in this climate and go mainstream, it might never do so. Have to use this opportunity.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So,
Tibor, the man always for the spice.
Do you think that this is the time to pick the fruit of esports? It's at its ripest.
I think this is... I'd phrase it differently myself. I wouldn't say it's esport at its ripest. I think it's esports at its most accessible. And I think that's what we need to be pushing. Esports has always been extremely accessible. It's free to consume the content. You don't have to get a subscription. Exactly. And that's what we need to be pushing. All of these people are now realizing that because they're bored out of their minds in isolation in California, as one example, and they're jumping onto it. And so that's where I think the key is. I wouldn't say it will never take off. I think now is a prime opportunity where it's most accessible. You get user accessibility here, and then it's all about user retention. If we can keep those people invested in esports as viewers, as fans long term, that's how we develop, and we can use this time as a skyrocket, as a launching board, but it'll do that eventually with more nurturing and growth, as we've seen it do over the last 2 years.
Yeah. I've got a couple of points to add to that. So the first thing is there's one thing with esports, and then there's another thing with traditional sporting fans just watching their favorite games done in an online format. So when you think about it, if you've got a basketball fan who only wants to be in esports for the NBA 2K while the NBA is offline, that's going to be very hard to get the retention. When you start getting the retention is where you get those traditional sporting fans starting to cross over into other games. When you watch a broadcast of soccer on ESPN, and then off the back of that, you're watching some Rocket League. It's a game that's, something that's very similar to what you've just watched. It's esports, and then from there you tip your toe in even further. You might watch some, I don't know, Apex Legends, for example, and then all of a sudden you can start getting into League and Dota, and that's how a traditional sports fan goes from just being, I just want to watch my favorite games while there's no games happening, to, oh, I like esports now as well. That's one thing. And the second thing is that right now it's arguably esports at its lowest point in a while. I would argue that, in terms of we're so used, and we've gotten so used to high quality productions in esports over the last 5 to 10 years, where we're now starting to pack out stadiums. We're not going to get those 1,500 fans or 15,000 fans at the CSGO major anymore, at least for the foreseeable future. We're not going to see the mad Aussies cheering it on wherever they go. We're not going to see the Brazilian crowd, which everyone loves to rave about. We're not going to see, the players' reactions on camera, whether it be of just their forehead or other things that players like to obsess on during face cams on streams. But it's esports right now, it's like showing someone esports, but you're showing them the worst version of esports when they have nothing else on. If we can then transform that into something that becomes the best version of esports, when we start packing out, IEM Katowice again, when we start packing out massive stadiums, when we get the international going on in Stockholm, and we can take those clips and show them to people and be like, yeah, this is esports, and this is just what you watch, and this is, if you want to get in like this, there's nothing stopping you. It's just a Twitch stream away. You don't have to pay for Foxtel to watch your favorite sport behind, pay-per-view or something like that. It's just, I like this game. I can go onto Twitch, I can go onto YouTube, and I can watch it.
And as I think ultimately, I'm looking to brands like ESL that are running competitions still online. All of our online TOs, the more that they can obviously sensitively push this messaging out there to potentially new fans watching and go, hey, the world's going through a lot right now, but we'll be back to this later. Stick around. We hope we're helping you through this time with some entertainment. And we hope that you'll stay with us when we come back to packed stadiums and Katowice and give people something to look forward to. It's much better than a prime minister standing there going, watch the cricket, it'll help. It's actually something for people to hold on to moving forward.
Bro, we've got to watch the Sharkies in week 1.
Exactly.
And then we can start looking things down after the Sharkies, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it.
Yeah, I think you guys are hitting the nail on the head really here. I got to move on to our next point, which is esport masterclasses. Should we start people in the esports scene start educating the mainstream scene a bit more? I think it not only esports' time to step up, but it's also the esport fans' time to step up. We got to start getting the word out, educating, showing.
We just need another Channel 9 segment with esports expert Aiden Hiko, surely. He's about one segment away from making it, I reckon.
I was this close.
I think there are definitely some people in are making waves in trying to splash it over into the mainstream. And the number one that I'm just going to knock off the top of my head is Slasher. You cannot go without talking about esports in the mainstream and showing people what esports is all about in the world without talking about Slasher. This man has done so much work in trying to, I guess, show off esports, not necessarily popularize esports, but just show it off. And I think this is definitely the time for other people who, Mitch Robinson, is probably one of those names that could step up and be like, yeah, and he is doing that. I'm going to give him the credit for that. He has been streaming basically every day since quarantine started. He's been doing random things, and, there's been people from the Brisbane Lions fan clubs who have been commenting on it. They're watching him playing Fortnite, and they're watching him doing something else at home. That's just what's happening. And I feel like people are slowly starting to realize that the opportunities are here, and that if you want to become something bigger in esports, it's like when the next new game comes out, everyone's trying to grind out, what's coming up next. Valorant's coming up next. Everyone's going to be trying to grind out Valorant, become the big Valorant person. People can start catering their audiences towards I want to appeal to just that relatable human being who might be a sports fan, who might be interested in these kinds of competitive games. And, I can stream to them, I can explain to them what's going on, really novice level streams, but I hope that gets picked up.
I think so too. It's esports masterclasses are always going to be, and educating the wider public is always something I'm for. 4 years, I think I've been around this space, which isn't very long compared to people like Slashers, who are doing phenomenal work advocating for our industry. But in that small, very niche region time that I've been around, it has been my core message. We educate. Everything we do, we teach. If a lesson comes from anything we try in esports as a community, not just domestically, but internationally, an example or a lesson that we can give to the wider global population, then it's beneficial. And if we can maintain that trajectory with an influx of people coming in, which can be hard to do, then it's going to be a net benefit. It's the phrasing around esports masterclasses gets me though, because it's always one of those things I'm wary of. Are we signing up to a subscription-based model where you can watch 9 one-hour-long YouTube videos on how to make it in esports, and really all you could have done is just scrolled through Slash's feed for 9 hours and learned?
Like a Skillshare kind of thing, or Lynda, or that.
There's some things that are really good, and you can learn a lot about marketing. You can learn a lot about live streaming as someone entering this space and not knowing anything. And And there are very good programs for that and great people that can help with that. But as with any influx in a new market, you have to be aware of the people making a quick buck. So I think it's spot on what we need. Educate those coming in, but tread carefully.
I agree.
Yeah. So like for me, it's like when you think about like an esports masterclass, there is no one plan to making it in esports, and I'm pretty sure every top streamer, not strictly esports, but I'm gonna branch out into the streamer world here as well. Every top streamer, every top player, every top org owner, like, you know, let's just throw Ocelot out there, who went probably the best example of a player transforming into an org owner, and not just an org owner, but arguably one of the most successful org owners out there. You know, there is no one set path to making it in esports, and there is no one set of lessons that you can be like, well, if I tick all these boxes, I'm just going to become Ninja 2.0. That's not how this industry works. And arguably, that's not how any industry works. So I don't know why people think that about esports. But anyways, I'm going to move on from that. I feel like if people were just looked locally, they don't set their sights too big. Like, you know, when I started in esports, I was like, oh, I just about Australian stuff. Now it's obviously a bit bigger than that for me, but my heart's still at home. And then, you know, I'll put League of Legends on the telly. You know, I'll be watching LCK. My mom will be studying in the living room as well. You know, we'll have a talk about that. It's not necessarily, you don't have to look big to start educating people about esports, and you don't have to be Slasher with 100,000 followers on Twitter who appears on Fox News once a week to talk to their presenters. You know, it can be as simple as, you know, you got your girlfriend at home or you got your boyfriend at home who might not be into esports, but, you know, they see you playing games and you're watching a couple of games, and, you know, it's being open and inviting. And I think that was the reason why I got into gaming. And if we can keep that feeling going on for others and being relatable, open and inviting, you know, more people will come and join the community.
Spot on. And I mean, Nico, I imagine you're reading these, but I've just seen a few pearlers come in on the Twitch chat.
Feel free to read out Twitch chat. There are well.
Ty's is spot on. People catching lightning in a bottle like Ninja did happens all the way across basically every industry. But the reason it's lightning in a bottle is that it isn't repeatable. And that actually is perfect for a point I wanted to raise. You mentioned it with Ocelot, love G2. And I've got similar feelings about Nadeshot and 100 Thieves. There is no formula. There is a formula, very, very basically, but there is not the formula. You know, there's you can take plenty of classes. You can go do degrees in business and law and marketing and accounting and finance and learn plenty about how to run a business, but it's not going to teach you how to run your business. And no different esports. Same thing with sports. We saw, I think Tibor put a post in here that, no, AK did. There's no sports masterclass. Exactly. Everything's anecdotal. If you go ask Nadeshot how he got famous, he'll tell you his story. And that is specifically his story.
It's like, I just played a bunch of COD. I just played a bunch of COD. And then he's just like, I just played a bunch of Fortnite. And then I worked really hard.
And capitalized on opportunities I had. Exactly. And that is their story. It is not how you will have success. You need to find out how you're doing that. I think if people are coming into this space looking to get involved, and very much like Pete said on the Game On Oz account, best advice he ever got when starting out in radio was if he was doing it to get famous, he's doing it wrong. Spot on. You need to be doing it because you want to, you love it, you have a passion for it that burns inside you. You need to be willing to work hard to be able to achieve at this.
That's the one common theme.
That's all, mate.
The one common theme across anyone who's made it big in any industry. You can talk about TV and radio, you can talk about esports, you can talk about whatever. One common theme is that they work hard.
Yeah.
And they don't just work hard, they work smart, and that's a completely other issue. But if you only get what you put in. You know, you've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the hard yards, you've got to put in the late nights, you've got to put in the early mornings. And
absolutely.
That esports is no different to any other industry, and that's the case. And so if people are putting in the hard yards, what you watch them do is their reward.
Exactly. That's right. I agree. I think we've, once again, this is something that, you know, could be a bigger, broader issue as well. Like, not issue, sorry, more of a bigger, broader subject. But we must press on. We only have but 16 minutes.
There's simply not enough time, Nico.
Exactly.
We can't solve esports problems tonight.
We can't give everyone a masterclass.
Looks like it's doomed forever. Feel free to subscribe to Ducky's masterclass. He's doing esports masterclass soon, I imagine. There you go.
You can
Suji,
get
can
the
you knock up the
Gordon
graphics,
Ramsay.
please?
Yeah,
Gordon
okay.
Ramsay
Hello,
cooking
are you here?
masterclass.
I don't have the graphics here. Sorry. Anyway, so moving on. One of the events that I was looking forward to, I missed out on last year's, and I really wanted to go this year's, but I don't know the way things are happening right now. It's a bit up in the air. MEO, the Melbourne Esports Open, the crown jewel of the esports Oceanic calendar, could be put off or postponed. I'm unwary, but I really want it to happen. I want it to happen so much that I've already booked my tickets.
I have 2.
Nope, not me, boys. I'm watching
I-
at home this year if it happens.
Yes,
Oh.
I think that is what will be the most logical conclusion to that. But if that does happen, what do you think we should do to fill that kind of void in the esports calendar? Do you think that should be, I don't know, community-run events, or should the orgs and developers step in and become a bit more involved and start running online tournaments to get people involved, some open tournaments? Where do you think it should be taken? What avenue do you think is a really good route to take?
You go first, Shoji.
All right, I'm going to come in hard and say I think it's going to be very hard for anyone to be able to replicate what we get at these sorts of events online because we get wonderful casual traffic. Looking at something, let's take, and certainly not pointing a finger, but I love Rainbow Six Siege. I love Ubisoft and our team domestically and internationally. But looking at what Ubisoft could do if there were to be Rainbow Six Siege finals at MEO again, but that's not happening. I think that's rough because organizing viewing parties, they never take off well. Trying to corral gamers into one Discord that they don't normally hang out in or one voice chat to watch together to share an excitement just doesn't happen. That's why Twitch chat exists, because that's the only way we get them there. I'd love that to be a different case, and I'd certainly love for a publisher to come up with a way to incentivize that and get people in these communal spaces so they could enjoy and watch together with some more connection than just the memery of Twitch chat. But I find it very hard. And like Pete just said, it's extremely messy. Good luck moderating that, making sure that we're taking care of people. People are less likely to be horrible people is probably the way I'm going to phrase that. Horrible people in Rod Laver Arena when we're watching the Riot League of Legends OPL finals than they are to be keyboard warriors or to be disrupting a Discord chat. Because it's much easier to do that when you can just log off and be like, pranked them, than it is to be thrown out of Rod Laver Arena by a big burly security guard. So playing the devil's avocado here, but I think it's going to be very hard. I'd like to see it happen, but I think
you guys don't go to
cricket
games or live games and just start yelling out, "Ha Pepega, Monka Air,
Monka
Tech W."
And just holding up and hiding up like fucking
no
signs.
They've got a sign with their drawn Pepe and they get kicked out of
like
Blizzard Arena.
on it. And,
What? I kind of lost my train of thought now, but I'm going to continue anyway.
Sorry,
that is fine. So yeah, it's going to be very difficult. Oh, here's my train of thought. I remembered it now. Getting on an online event, it is in person. The worst thing you can probably get kicked out of Rod Laver Arena for is trying to build a beer snake or a stack of pizza boxes, and if that is anything IEM showed last year, that is exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really sad. But people in person are likely to be much more reserved people than they are online. There has been examples of where, like, aside Australians in CS:GO crowds, we go wild.
Sure.
There have been examples of like other industries that are pseudo gaming, but not really, being able to transform what was an awesome live event in person into an awesome live event online. The number one example I draw from this is music festivals. I've seen a lot of music festivals in my time on Minecraft, where people get all the artists, somehow boot them into the Minecraft server, everyone listens along, everyone's having a rave, it can be a silent disco, whatever the hell they want. But, this is happening across the music festival industry now. Just with Anamanaguchi and a couple of other EDM producers out of America, which is going to be really exciting if you're an EDM fan. I suggest looking into that. But esports doesn't have the same kind of environment we can host it in. Yeah, we had like the Fortnite The End event. That was traditional gaming. We've had other in-game events where plays have gotten as a mass community, not just the 10 people in your league game or the 10 people in your Dota game fighting off against each other, but like hundreds or thousands of people in the same lobby doing something. That's all been done before, but that doesn't really translate well into esports. So I personally don't see MEO going ahead, which makes me sad because I booked flights and everything, but whatever, that's another topic. MEO to me is an event that means something very special to me. It was the first esports event I ever went to. I went there in 2018 to celebrate my 18th birthday, and it turned out to be so much more for me, and that was really what I attribute to being the kickstart of my career. And so to see it possibly getting delayed or palmed off until next year, it's rough. It's rough for Australian esports where there have been players working on this for 12 months, and it's a culmination of a lot of things. The league finals at MEO determines who goes to Worlds. Massive tournament for anyone involved in Australian League of Legends, and that might not even be happening this year. Worlds might not even be happening this year. In the past, it's been Overwatch. Although we didn't have a spot at the Gauntlet last year, we lost it in the first season, but there was a chance that we could have had a spot of someone going to the Gauntlet in South Korea. That's now gone. So the part where I'm really sorry about for MEO isn't necessarily the people, you, me, or anyone else.
It's just money.
Who would have
money that I can get back. It's
Yeah.
I think we can all brush it underneath.
Yeah, where I feel sorry for MEO being cancelled is the players who are going to lose the opportunities off that, regardless of the game. I feel the same pain whenever esports support, especially in Oceania, gets scaled back, which happens very often. Year on year, there's one game that's constantly getting scaled back, or there's another one, and every time it hurts my heart a little bit. And so for MEO, that's going to have widespread consequences across, not just for spectators, but for players. And for that's why I'm really sad MEO. If it doesn't go on, that's the part that I'm really disappointed about.
And I think I said with both of you that's what I'm disappointed about, is opportunity that we miss out on, which is what everyone globally is upset about right now. But in this specific instance, I think it applies more to players, to people grinding, working, volunteering, whatever space it is, media, journalism, content, all around events like that. Those are the people that I'm hurting for the most. Me personally, I can watch it at home, sink beers. SA still got a maximum of 10 gatherings, so I can kind of have a viewing party. But I'm 1.5 meters apart in my home.
Well, there's Discord,
that's
Discord
right.
viewing parties, we do
So
that all the time at Snowball.
That's right.
I think that happens.
I don't think that publishers, TOs, Ticketek, Melbourne state government can really do much to make up for what COVID-19's done to the event space for this year. And I certainly think it's a bit much to ask for that, because it's completely different to running an event like what they normally run. But I wish they could. I'm just sad to see. Obviously nothing confirmed, but the way things are tracking,
it's not looking good. It's not looking good. That's the number one asterisk you have to put in the entire segment, is like everything we've said is speculative. There has been no word out of the ESL camp publicly.
Yep.
That MEO is not going ahead.
Yes.
And so until that word happens, I guess we kind of just have to assume it's going ahead. But the way things are tracking, it's not pretty.
Yes, we're not the official ESL promoters of it all, so please, this is not an official announcement or anything. Moving on to another thing that's pretty devastating to the esports news, another CSGO, or a CSGO, I might add, major has been cancelled. I think we were talking about it a bit earlier as well, Ducky. Before the show, you guys weren't here. We were talking before the show. We didn't just randomly just pop in. But Ducky, I think you've got a bit more to talk about. That was a very impressive pop sound.
Thanks.
I'm just telling notification, that old pop that they had in Skype.
Yeah, I'm just channeling my inner TikTok thought. That's what I'm getting my transitions happening. That's all.
I mean, we need to make revenue somehow, so
I'm pretty sure we've got a Snowball Esports TikTok. I'm pretty sure Swifty's handled that already.
Yeah, we'll have to get Swifty onto that, shall we? But we must get on track. We must keep this toot train keep on rolling. Ducky, you've got some information. You got some things to talk about the CS:GO major.
Yes, so I'll give you guys the TLDR like I did with Team Esper. So the TLDR with the CSGO Major is that the Rio Major has been postponed. It has not been cancelled. So the Major is now moving to November. It was originally meant to be held in May, just funnily enough, after the Rainbow Six Season 11 Pro League Finals in Brazil as well, which have actually been cancelled. Anyways, back to CSGO. The Major has been postponed until mid-November. Still being held in Rio. Only one Major for the year. And every team, because basically all the teams had qualified for the Major by that point, or at least the minor qualifiers had all been completed. Or at least the qualification for the minor qualifiers has been completed. All those seats out the window. Now what we've been left with is a major regional ranking system where the slots given to each region have been divided up based on how that region has statistically performed. So EU's got 10 slots at the most, and then there's 3 regions with 1 slot, including Australia, which is a blow to Australian esports as a whole. And because we are an Australian esports location and we are an Australian esports story, that's what I'm going to focus on. Where we had a team like 100 Thieves, who are the boys, over in NA. They're probably still going to have a chance to qualify in the NA bracket, but that remains to be seen as to whether they'll pull through. But then we had teams like Order and Avant, who actually had a favorable minor bracket to possibly have, for the first time at an event, 3 Oceanic teams at a major. Absolutely huge. And that opportunity is now gone with this new major ranking system, where it's likely just to be Renegades. Just going to take the slot from everyone because they've had the most performances, the most solid performances internationally for an Australian team. So I guess the number one thing to take from this is like, it's just another example of opportunities being stripped away from Australian esports. You know, I just went on my very impassioned rant about 5 minutes ago about why losing MEO hurts. You know, this is just another example. This is not just another opportunity domestically. This is an opportunity on the global stage.
Mm.
And that's spot on, Ducky. That's exactly what I would have said, is that it is another example in what is going to be, over the next many months, many examples of people missing out on opportunities because of the state that our global climate is in right now. And this, unfortunately, is another one. We miss out on the potential for 3 ANZ teams, really, being able to go to what is one of the most prestigious events of the year. We're not going to get that probably until 2021, all things considered. And it's sad because maybe there's a different way to handle this. Maybe there could have been online measures to be taken so that we could have that opportunity. I think on the opposite foot, though, Valve and TOs involved with this are looking at it on what is the most viable. And to keep this as simple as possible so that something can move forward, that's what I feel they're doing. And it hurts. Like, I'm not saying that and not disappointed. I'd love to see another set of the boys head over for a competition in what is one of my favorite esports titles. But still, it's unfortunately the tune that I think we're going to be having a lot of, sadly, if we make it past this pilot episode. So
yeah, and that's the thing, is it's just like, I don't think it would be as disappointing if it's like, I think it's just a compound of the current global situation, plus, you know, the fact that we're losing things, you know, even though esports is gaining so much from this, you know, we're also losing so much. You know, this is such a massive opportunity for, you know, Australia to possibly have another breakout success in CSGO, which is one of the esports historically we've been the most successful in.
Absolutely.
Arguably, it is our most successful esport. You know, CSGO is the one of many games to be affected by it. And, you know, now we're going to start seeing the knock-on effects in other esports titles as it continues to wear on. You know, we've seen MSI delayed, not necessarily cancelled, just delayed in League of Legends. You know, we don't know what the state of Worlds is going to be like because that's meant to be held in China. And, you know, China is a very precarious subject to touch on right now.
I mean, my hallmark tournament, TI, is who knows what that's happening right now. And that's probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest esports tournaments in the year, and that's held in Sweden. So I you know, who knows what's up.
Yeah, it's all very much a case of who knows what's going to happen. Like no one knows, and I guess when we don't know what's going to happen, we can only feel sorry for what we're going to lose. And you know what we're losing out of the CS:GO Rio Major is we're losing the opportunity to have 3 Australian teams, like quote unquote Australian. You know, 100 Thieves, as Ty's pointed out in chat, is American for qualification purposes, but they're all Australian.
They're all
Minus
Australian.
one Norwegian, minus one Norwegian guy, but yes,
Yeah.
they're all Australian for the all intents.
He's
purposes.
Australian now. He might as well be.
Yeah, exactly. Point of
He's
motion.
like
It's
exonerated.
Jacob.
Exactly. It's
yeah.
our attitude. It's like we
Yeah.
adopted Russell Crowe for a while, and then he threw a phone at someone, and you can have him back.
Yeah, you
not
can have
us.
him back.
Yeah.
But then he made some other good movies. It's like, we'll take it back now.
We'll take him back again.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Pavlova, all that kind of stuff. We're
Exactly.
we're a melting pot of cultures and stealing. That's in our
That's
nature.
what Australia's
Yeah.
all about.
So as long
You
as he
gotta-
frags out in the server, he's Australian and we love him, and we adopt him like we did Nifty at IEM Sydney that year. But
Mm.
if he's bottoming, anchoring, he's out. He's
If
Norwegian.
his
That's how it
rating
goes.
drops below 0.8, he's done.
Yep.
He's gone.
Done.
It's
Yep,
nice
he's lost
having
his
ADR
ADR is through the floor. Get out.
Yeah,
Nah,
done.
sorry,
That one.
man. That's how it works around here. Unless you put Stephen Bradbury sorts of things, it's just not going to happen. By the way,
Exactly.
that man should be on a coin. All right.
Shh. Coins are about to be irrelevant, mate.
Yeah, everything.
Can't use
no,
them
no
anymore.
cash
You can't even
payments
use
at the
them
moment,
right now.
Nico.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No
right.
cash payments. No, I pay in bottle caps now.
Fair.
That's-
That's
I don't
arguably
get-
worse, bro.
Yeah, I don't get anything back or anything like that. They just tell me to leave the Woolworths, but I mean,
You're taking up one of our 4 square meters, please leave.
exactly. If you've got 2 legs and can run pretty fast, then you could really get anything. Honestly, I don't condone thievery. Okay, I do not.
Especially in the toilet paper aisle. We don't
Yeah,
condone that.
no, yes. I mean, that's. I don't want to get.
That's
off
a
the
different
topic of it.
podcast.
That's a different podcast.
Ducky.
Yeah.
That's the how do we replace sports we're missing because MMA's not going on, so let's just go Eastern Suburbs or worse.
Yeah.
But we need the sports reporters in the shopping centres. That's what we need, you know.
Yeah.
That fight out at the Woolies and God knows
But-
Western Sydney. You know, we needed someone on the ground right there. We needed
We-
BT on the commentary.
Yeah,
for that.
we need Joe
Mhm.
Rogan and Dana White in the calling the like a UFC fight down in here.
That's it. And
Yeah.
we'll get like you said, we'll get BT looking for some toilet paper type operators.
Exactly.
brawling it out in the aisles.
Roman BT down the aisles. Let's go.
Okay. All right, I have to wrap it up real quick, but first I'm going to go through a little bit what's happening in April, what's happening in the coming days in terms of esports. I've tried to tackle as many as I could find in the space that I had today because I just did it today.
Go,
So in
go.
League of Legends OPL, we have Friday the April 10th. I'm doing this by Sydney time, so 1600 4 p.m. for the people that don't do 24-hour time. Order versus Avant round 1 in the lower bracket. Friday the 10th, 8 o'clock, right afterwards, it's going to be Chiefs versus Direwolves, all streamed on Twitch now, or always has been. Then the next day, Saturday, April the 11th at 4 p.m., it's going to be Legacy, whoever wins out of the Chiefs, and versus whoever wins out of the Chiefs and Direwolves. LCS, Aussie time, for people that want to tune in and get up at 6 a.m., like I did this morning on this Game on Oz podcast. Very happy that I did that. Wednesday, April 8th at 6 a.m. is going to be FlyQuest versus Golden Guardians. I suggest we watch that one because it's got our boy FBI.
Yeah.
And then the Thursday right afterwards, we've also got another.
Ryoma in the mid
Ryoma.
lane. He's going to be playing for 100 Thieves versus TSM at 6 o'clock the next day in the lower bracket finals. Then Sunday is going to be C9 versus EG. That's Sunday the 12th at 6 a.m. They're going to be playing the Aussie, the semi-finals. The upper bracket, I'm guessing. LEC Aussie time, if you want to do some really stupid things, get up at 2 a.m. on April the 11th to tune into Origin versus Rogue.
Get in to support Destiny, lads. Get in.
Destiny is one of the kindest, sweetest souls in the OPL. If you can get up at 2 a.m. and cheer him on, please do. He's a lovely person and a great support player. The next day is going to be April 12th at 1 a.m. Get out of town. That's going to be Mad Lions versus Fnatic in the upper bracket semi-finals, followed by Monday, April 13th at 1 a.m. G2 versus whoever wins out of Origin and Rogue. It's going to be Origin.
Yes.
The CSGO, unfortunately, been cancelled. More news to come ahead for what is going to be happening in CSGO. I'm unsure about that one. Ducky might know. What's
CSGO is kind of like, regional leagues are happening. ANZ Champs
Mm.
this weekend,
Cool.
but there's still more tournaments happening with Flashpoint and ESL Pro League.
perfect.
Obviously, in the ESL Pro League, 100 Thieves have just been eliminated. Which
Then don't watch it.
blows.
Screw it.
But if,
No,
if
please.
you are looking for some high quality CS, Flashpoint and ESL Pro League that you can watch, and they basically stream from, I guess, what's around 7 o'clock Eastern time, and it goes all the way through to about lunchtime the next day.
Perfect. Real quickly, Dota 2, ESL 1 LA still being played online. That's happening right now. I think we're in the either Europe or NA. Sorry, I didn't write it down on my notes. China Dota 2 Pro League Season 2 is starting up soon as well. If anyone's shooting that, please. Dota 2 is still a great scene. It always has been.
Even though we don't have an Australian scene, but yeah, it's an alright esport.
Do not start Nico on this, boy. We don't have time.
I mean,
We don't have time. This is another episode.
I watch the LPL stuff. Call of Duty League starts up in 2020. It's starting up soon on April 12th. And the Rainbow Six Pro League season is starting up in Europe. Got a lot of good
final
things
weeks of
happening.
that happening.
Yep. You want to tune into that on April 7th at 3 a.m. God, it's great to be in Australia. 3 a.m. to 6:45. You're going to catch Team Empire versus Chaos, then followed by G2, Na'Vi, BDS, then Fours, and then Rogue and Vitality. That's
if you
what I
want to catch an Aussie in action, G2 has Virtue, just freshly moved from Fnatic over to that G2 roster. Exciting against wonderful matchup to watch. Na'Vi was also just at the Six Invitational. And one little esport that Nico has missed out on is the Overwatch League. That's still going on every weekend.
The Overwatch
Catch it Friday
League.
to Sunday.
Let me pull out my
games are still
tome.
happening online.
Let me pull out my tome. The Overwatch League. Here it is.
Yeah, here it is.
Sorry. Yes, I love the Overwatch team and the Overwatch League. All right, really quickly, I have to thank Game on Oz for hosting us for the very first time for the Snowball Show. Thank you so much to Pete and the gang for supporting this show and bringing it on. They're doing amazing work. Please tune in. I think it's got a couple more days to go. Shout out to chat and shout out to chat for their answers, and please go support Snowball at Snowball Esports on Twitter. That's where we're most prominent, and check out the articles. If you like what you're seeing here today, read the articles. They're just as good. They're just as amazing, written by lovely people.
Unless they've got the byline of Andrew Amos, you might want to avoid. Apparently,
yeah, you might want to
from the producer himself. He's told me that.
Yep, spot on.
Right.
Whenever I consume Snowball content, I make sure it says Isaac McIntyre and never Andrew Amos. Never.
Yeah, I don't touch those ones. And if Andrew Ray decides to publish an article in the next millennia, I'll probably tune into those ones as well. Real quick, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Judge. Give a shout out to him. Please follow him on Twitter. Shout out to Ducky as well. Follow him on Twitter. He's got enough Twitter followers. You don't need to follow him. I
always want more.
Me, yeah, he always wants more. And if you want to follow me, feel free to follow me. Thank you so much everyone for tuning in, and see you later.
Love you guys.
Peace.